Welcome everyone back to Spoiler Warning, featuring myself, Tom Colohue. We are, as always, talking wrestling news today, and with so many shows happening so often, we've had an All In, we've had a Saturday Night Main Event, we've had Evolution. This is a great time to be talking about wrestling. I do apologise for the overall pinkness of the face. It's been very hot days recently, and I'm a little bit on fire, but we still have plenty to talk about, and when it comes to being on fire, our top story today will be about a fire that has unfortunately been stopped before it really got burning. That being, of course, everything going on at the moment with Seth Rollins. We'll be reporting on his injury first and foremost. In addition to that, there's plenty more to discuss. We'll be talking about what to do with the Money in the Bank briefcase currently held by Seth Rollins, who looks like he's not going to be able to take advantage of it. We're going to talk about a significant amount of money that Saudi Arabia has offered WWE for a specific match. We're going to talk about the Wyatt Six winning the Tag Team Championships. We're going to talk about the Celebrity Tag Team match happening at SummerSlam. Jesse Ventura getting his marching orders a little bit when it comes to Saturday Night Main Event. We're going to talk about Stephanie Vaquer and what the plans seem to be for her going forwards. We're going to talk Bianca Belair and her future, as well as a little bit of reaction to Worked Wrestling's reporting on who John Cena's final opponent will be, even though, of course, it has not been conclusively decided. So, plenty to talk about, and we are going to go straight into our top story as regards Seth Rollins. While I'm doing that, do me a favour in the chat. Let me know, because I can see plenty of people, and I've seen plenty of people saying how great Evolution was. One, was it as great as I can see people saying? And two, how did Saturday Night Main Event compete? So let me know in the chat right now. Saturday Night Main Event, how did it compete with Evolution, and what was the best match of the weekend for you? Seth freaking Rollins has picked up another freaking knee injury, and it is unfortunately real serious bad luck, but we are once again making the rounds, and Seth has been unable to avoid a serious problem. He called the audible during the match upon realizing what had happened. It wasn't the springboard that caused the damage, it was the move just before, but he called the audible during the match to ensure that LA Knight picked up the win. LA Knight was not planned to win the match. However, Seth Rollins decided, well, to be fair, he knew immediately that he was going to be out for a long time, and he wanted to make sure at least someone got the rub before he went anywhere. There was supposed to be quite a bit more of the match. It did not happen. There was supposed to be more from Bron Breakker. It did not happen. And Rollins, for his part, is said to be absolutely devastated by the situation. There's quite a few people who've checked in with him. Roman Reigns, obviously. CM Punk, I should point out, actually checked in to see if he was okay. From what I'm being told, there's a reality in which they're actually quite close now. I've seen plenty of people stating that the injury isn't real, which is a complete fabrication. They have some serious soul searching to do if you're desperately trying to spin headlines to get clicks because of an injury this severe from someone who has constantly and consistently had severe knee injuries. You've got to look after your knee, and yeah, I would be asking questions of anyone trying desperately to make money from this. As regards the Money in the Bank briefcase, there is nothing conclusive as of yet that they are going to do with it, but there is plenty of ideas currently being passed around. A tournament seems the most likely scenario. There's also an argument being made that Seth should be back in time to use it, and he would, of course, be able to survive a little longer. So this gives him some opportunities to potentially keep the briefcase, but the most likely scenario seems to be a tournament at this point in time. Hear me out, though. I would absolutely love it if they gave the briefcase to Paul Heyman. I know they won't. But it would be great if they did. I personally think the most likely scenario is that the briefcase stays with the faction. So someone like a Bron Breakker, obviously we've got Bronson Reed, or at the very least it becomes a sort of traditional Freebird rule. I think that is a scenario which could work really well for everyone. Bron Breakker is, after all, someone who would have been competing for the top championship, but only once Seth Rollins won it. 83 people already here on YouTube, 27 likes. Please do keep those likes coming, and please keep the chat rate high. We're already on a chat rate of 21, which is fantastic. Ellie says, any update about Seth and the briefcase? Just gone through it. Bob John says they really put the money in the bank on an injury-prone wrestler, whilst LA Knight was right there to win it. They also put it on one of the best wrestlers in the goddamn world. Aaron says, was Roman supposed to return? He will be returning in the build to SummerSlam. There was no intention of having return there. Mr. X says, was Brock Lesnar supposed to return? No. And also says, any news about Britt Baker in AEW? There is no news about Britt Baker in AEW. Britt Baker is not at the moment aggravating for a move anywhere. We have 8 likes as well on the TikTok. Please keep those coming if you are sharing. Right. YouTube side, plenty to talk about here. Thank you everyone who's dropped in to share your opinion. Calvin said, just want to say Evolution delivered after everything that went wrong. Hope to be back soon. I'd imagine that is Calvin tagging out, and we will see him again later. Bailey says it was a Hall of Fame caliber match between Io Sky and Rhea Ripley. Marcel saying hi to everyone to further boost that chat rate. Thank you, Marcel. One of the easiest ways you can support this channel is just to say hello to each other. Genuinely. It really does help boost everything we do here by boosting that chat rate. Sledgehammer says, howdy all, Evolution was fantastic. Ray says, out of all the PLE and pay-per-views, I enjoyed All In the most because Timeless Tony Storm retained the AEW Women's title and Adam Page won the AEW World title, and Cope returned to help Christian Cage. If, of course, you are a big fan of AEW's All In, I have heard some very good things happen there. By all means, let me know as well. Sid says, Triple H said Evolution is not a yearly show. No, this was just purely competition. Roy says NXT Heatwave the same day as AEW's Forbidden Door. Yeah, accusations of counter-programming are absolutely true. Absolutely true. Paul Simmons says Nikki Bella will be competing on Raw. Eric says, will his injury make him drop the briefcase? Just discussed that one. Liam says Naomi's new reign as Women's World Champion is her first official World Championship reign. I've lost track of it. In the company in 8 years. Last time it was a SummerSlam win over Natalya way back when. That was in fact one of my earliest reports, because I was reporting for PWTorch at the time and reported that Naomi would be winning the championship at SummerSlam. I reported that, I think, three months before. Very early in my career. Thank you very much, Pete, for renewing your membership for a 29th month, and welcome to the show. Always good to see you, mate. Thank you kindly for that. Bailey says Triple H and WWE Creative put so little effort into Evolution and it massively overperformed. I think sometimes that is sort of how things work, and Evolution 1 had that element to it. The expectations for Evolution 1 were very low, and it absolutely delivered in every possible way. Sometimes the less you focus on it, the more it works. Ginger Knight says the opening and closing Evolution matches made the Saturday night main event card look poor. Liam says the feeling among those spoken to is that they'd have to do another Evolution show after the excellent quality of the show last night. That is via PWInsider. Thank you, Liam. And Sean says, hello, Tom. Welcome, Sean. Aaron says, any plans to change up tag teams in the Wyatt 6? I will be discussing that shortly. Don't you worry. Mr. X says, why did WWE post Lesnar merch at Saturday night main event at X? A simple situation, really. They're trying to get rid of it before he leaves. His contract is about to wrap up. The merch team is not necessarily the same as a creative team. Mr. X says, will Saraya return to WWE? She's trying to make it happen, but as I did mention, the WWE are not that interested. Gordon says, hey buddy, I'm sure you've been spammed with this. What's the end game with Cena? Head and heart ops. Right. With Cena, I haven't necessarily been spammed with it, but I've spoken about it and I'm happy to speak about it again. With Cena, the intention is very much to beat everyone and then make a new top-level star. I've got myself an opinion that it should be Jacob Fatu, but there are others who certainly think differently. And no, Mr. X, I don't believe Cena will win the IC Championship. He already is a record-breaking world champion. I don't think you need to have every possible everything. Liam says, advertise for Raw tonight. Gauntlet match to face Gunter for the World Championship at SummerSlam. Nikki Bella versus Chelsea Green, and Naomi appears. Also says Triple H says Seth Rollins' knee injury doesn't look good and he'll get an MRI tomorrow. I believe that was yesterday that was mentioned. Kel says, hey Tom, what a frustrating moment for WWE. A lot of stories are planned for Seth. Now his injury has certainly put a stop to that. This year feels cursed. Almost everything on Monday Night Raw was being actively built around the Seth Rollins faction. However, everything with The Rock was also being built around the Seth Rollins faction. As I mentioned way back in February, Seth Rollins was the third man. Seth Rollins was going to be uniting with The Rock, particularly after John Cena left. Still possible. A lot of moving parts. Liam says Trish Stratus will wrestle in WWE again this year per Fightful Select. Yeah, I expected much of the same. Declan says, hi Tom. Welcome, Declan. Trekipedia says, what's up, folks? Tom, how bad is Seth hurt? Zip back to the beginning of the show, mate, and you'll find out my reporting on that one. Also says, everyone help out Tom. Like, share, and subscribe, please. 34 likes, 82 people. Let's hit those thumbs ups, guys. Hector says, looks like Fightful Report. I believe it came from them regarding Blake Monroe's heel turn was imminent was correct. I guess Mark went up for the bad guys this time. I mean, they do have a pretty good record. They're not infallible, and I do think that needs mentioning, but they do have a pretty good record. Marcel says, I hope that Roman comes back today and attacks Braun in the match. Declan dropping some chat, Ray. Thank you, Declan. Paul says, we're happy to see Stephanie McMahon at Evolution. I don't hate the woman, so yeah, sure. She makes no real difference to wrestling for me. Cal says, I was so happy for the Wyatts winning the belts. It feels like they're getting pushed hard. In my opinion, they are so over. Bailey says, Saturday Night Main Event was already forgettable. It doesn't even compare to Evolution. C-Max says, good afternoon, Tom. Evolution was better than Saturday Night Main Event. Tom says, what do you think will happen with Roman Reigns? He could return tonight and cost either Punk or Braun. Difficult, because I do think we are now in the end game of the build for SummerSlam. They've got lots of championship matches sorted, and I do expect we're going to see Roman. However, with the Seth injury, that could well change what they were intending to do. Gordon said, lots of moving parts. Maybe Braun becomes a front man and gives Seth an angle when he returns. I think that's certainly possible. It depends how much faith WWE have in the man. Mr. X says, any chance John Moxley returns to WWE or Jericho? Yes? No? SNH says, does my tribal chief return tonight? I would say tonight is much more likely than Saturday Night Main Event was. Hello, Michael. Good to see you, mate. Cal says, Naomi getting her push, something Tom Colohue reported in 2024. Thank you for the credit. David says, Evolution overall better than Saturday Night Main Event. Nothing worth talking about from Saturday Night Main Event except for an injury, which is not what we want. Io versus Rhea is the best match of the weekend. I appreciate that breakdown there, David. I think that's a very apt way of putting it. And I do agree, the only thing anyone seems to be talking about for Saturday Night Main Event is indeed the injury. Dad says, big up Tom, who's next for Moxley now? I would expect Moxley will take a pretty significant break now. Take a little time to rest and recover before coming back and working with a multitude of newer challenges. I'm a little thirsty, so I'm just going to open. Calm down. Just going to open a drink. Declan says, any news on Becky Lynch, Tom? At this point in time, the only news really is that come SummerSlam, I expect she'll still be working one-on-one with Bayley. Carl, always eager to give me credit, and I appreciate you for that. Says, Tom also reported in 2024, Jade Cargill will be getting a serious push in 25, and surprise, surprise, he was right. Listen to Mr. Colohue. To be fair, everyone here at least knows that I know what I'm talking about, so I'd hope, preaching to the choir. But yeah, pop off, mate. I am always going to support it. Joey says, hey Tom, do you think Bron Breakker could be given the briefcase if he's out for a long time? I certainly think that's a likely scenario. Ray says, I went crazy when Cope returned to help Christian Cage at All In. Declan says, why not give it to Becky Lynch? Cal says, WrestleMania weekend, Tom said a triple threat match between Lyra, Becky and Bayley would happen down the line. Tom once again was right. They were building towards that for a long time, and I'm glad it finally did happen, and it was quite fun. Joey says, do you know if there have been discussions for a third Evolution after how good this one was? Still early days. There's been no direct communication about it yet. Daniel says, happy Friday. Hey, everyone. Hey, you. And happy Friday. It's not Friday. Happy Monday. I just wished the week away. Happy Monday to you too. Eric says, good evening, Tom. Best match at Evolution is the Women's World Championship match. The sleeper is the Women's Tag Team Championship Fatal 4-Way match. And Daz boosting the chat rate. Welcome, Daz. Cal says, Tom also reported in May it would be unlikely to see Penta and Rey Fenix team this year, and surprise, Tom was right again. There was an intention to make that happen, but with the draft pushed back, it did get pushed back with it. Ooh, right, where were we? Tom says, maybe Reigns returns any other handicap match with Braun and Reed at SummerSlam. That would be fun. And give us, the old Superman. Gordon says, is there any big talents flying around in NXT? Seems a long time since they brought someone up. I wouldn't say it's a long time. Just after WrestleMania, of course, which was 3 months ago now, they called up 3 women. and they've all made a pretty big impact. Mr. X says, what happens to the draft? Still waiting on it. There's a lot of reasons why it hasn't happened, but Triple H not being a fan is one of them. Aaron says, any reason why Io Sky didn't defend her title much? Her opponents kept getting injured. Just bad luck on their part. Really bad luck. Hector says, I know Seth and most wrestlers don't like adjusting their in-ring style, but this many knee injuries should really make him at least consider doing less moves that impact his knee. Not an unfair statement. Not an unfair statement. That is some slang I'm not really familiar with, Ned. I hope he's still teaching rock and roll to the world. Trekipedia says Tom Bron is on the rise, and I'd be more than happy if he won it, or even if Seth made a deal with Pierce to give it to Bron. I do think there might be a tournament, but I still think Bron is going to walk away with it, personally. Declan says, rest up and recover, Seth. Joey says, I wonder how Goldberg feels about having his retirement speech cut. Cal says, Tom's been saying for almost 2 years now, Brock won't return, and he's been right. Now, it's not impossible that things change. As we know, plans change is a rule you have to live by in wrestling. But I have been proven right every single week on this one. I was the only one to say it. And literally, immediately upon reports coming out, I said exactly what the WWE would be doing, and it's been proven right. Appreciate you, Cal. Ray says, what PLE or pay-per-view did people enjoy the most? I enjoyed All In. Marcel says, Evolution was great. Joey says, do you know what's going on with Adam Cole? He's had so many concussions that they are genuinely concerned for his brain. Basically. He's been instructed, similar to how Alexa Bliss was instructed way back when, that he just needs to not be in the ring for a long time. I unfortunately think this might be it. Declan says, I hope everyone had a great weekend. Ginger Knight says, unfortunately, I didn't hear the source. Another channel claimed that Seth was already injured. No. Eric says, comparing Evolution to Saturday Night's main event is like comparing a handgun to a cheap dollar store water pistol. Evolution killed. Pardon me. Having hiccups right now would be terrible, and I don't want them. So we're not doing that. Mr. X says, what are the SummerSlam plans for Punk? We'll find out tonight. Tom says, I wouldn't mind history repeating itself by Seth doing the heist of the century. I mean, he's been heist of the century. He has heist of the century. You might as well enjoy the heist of the century. SNH says, I'm sad about Seth. I wanted Roman to take him out. Where were we? Sean says, was Naomi cashing in on Io always a plan, or was it a pivot? It was always going to happen, but it happened earlier than expected. The other Mike says, don't think you can compare a PLE in Evolution to a TV special in Saturday Night Main Event. Both were great, in my opinion. Yes, Fiend, I did already discuss Seth Rollins. It's our top story. Just rewind, and it's right there ready for you. Eric says, hi, Eric, which I just find very nice. Noob says, hello, Mr. Colohue. How are you doing? Doing well, thank you, and hope you are too. The Rabbit says, who do you see winning the gauntlet tonight on Raw? I have Punk winning and going on to face Gunter at SummerSlam. Certainly, they need something for Punk to do. He's a big name. It would probably help Gunter to pick up that win. Joey says, is Nikki Bella signed to a new deal since she's wrestling again tonight? The deal, to my knowledge, is that there has been a signature, but it's not for a considerable amount of time. It's for a very, very limited amount of dates, and it's only for a year or so, but things can, of course, change if she does well. Dad says, Forbidden Door might start early as it's in London. It will start early for you guys. Bailey says, lost in all the talk about Evolution is the beginning of the Stephanie Vaquer era on the main roster. Already started, mate. The second she was called up, they treated her like a much bigger deal than Julia or Roxanne Perez. Ken says, hey Tom, do you think Alexa and Charlotte are going to dethrone Raquel and Roxanne? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. King Azza says, Tom, now that Seth is out, should they pivot to Roman versus Braun at SummerSlam? We'll see, because there's no guarantee that that was actually going to be the SummerSlam plan. You never know, it might be Roman versus Solo. Noob says, what was the point of Jade Cargill winning the Queen of the Ring when Naomi cashes in on the women's world title last night? Because Jade Cargill is still going to get the championship match, but now she can challenge Naomi. Cal says, also in January 2025, Tom spoke repeatedly about a Roxanne Perez push. The haters laughed. Now she's in a huge faction and a tag team champ. They knew what they were getting. They knew exactly what they were getting. The other Mike says the notion that Hunter put less effort into Evolution is just not true, but I understand narrative's right. What I will say, Triple H did delegate a bit of Evolution and a bit of Saturday Night Main Event. So he didn't book the entire show on either side. However, with the amount of shows that he had to do, I don't blame him. Declan says, any news on Becky Lynch after Evolution? Yep, still a champ. Really not sure what you're asking. Fiend says, Jacob Fatu beating Cena would go hard. It'd be very career-defining. Joey says, do you know if the change is plans for Roman at SummerSlam with Seth's injury? Again, I'm not certain that it was going to be Seth versus Roman. I personally still expected it might have been Braun versus Roman, Spear versus Spear, because, you know, WWE loves alliteration. So it says, would you like to see a Forbidden Door AEW versus WWE? Not really. They'd be so competitive that they'd both demand to win every match. It would just be very annoying. Sean says, via StarCast, Bryan Danielson said WWE recently contacted him to stop using the yes chants. Too close to LA Knight, apparently. Just, some people just like to argue. Aaron says, any plans to get TNA and any other platforms? They've been trying a few different things to try and get as much interest as possible. It's one of the reasons they're working with WWE at the moment to try and get more attention to them. Mr. X says, will Cross stay at WWE? If he wants to, the option's there. Aaron says, any Cross news? Will there be Sammy versus Cross at SummerSlam? There is discussion of Sammy versus Cross having a match. However, I don't think it would make the SummerSlam card. Sutz says, what direction does AEW go with Ospreay? Hard to say, but I definitely think the man is a... well, he's made for championships. What can I say? Pardon me. Marcel, I suspect CM Punk is the obvious choice here. Next for Hangman, I'm not sure, Daz. There's a plethora of challengers, and AEW tend to mix it up enough that it's not an obvious choice, so someone gets the rub. Bad Boy says, I feel like Charlotte is now becoming more a close friend of Alexa, and then maybe she's dropping Lily. What is your thoughts? I think they're not friends, and their t-shirt tells you so. Oh, Pete all over it. Marcel's so happy for Naomi. The other Mike is kind of over the Wyatt Six. Their reign should be no longer than the New Day's latest reign, which, to be fair, was a few months. Sean says, Mariah May's heel turn doesn't make sense. She pinned JCJ in a Great American Bash and then helped her win. Yeah, I'm not au fait with that. I know it happened. I'm just not necessarily au fait with having a response to it. Not sure. Ray says, WWE don't book Jordynne Grace as good as TNA did. If TNA was booking Jordynne Grace better at the Great American Bash, I'm sure she would have won the championship, but they also need to book the people who are already there. Oracular fan says, do you think that he tweaked it similar to 2022? Yes. Joey says, is Andrade teaming with Rey Fenix a long-term plan? Long-term, no. Short-term, yes. It's getting them on TV when they weren't necessarily doing that previously. At the moment, on the YouTube side, we have 107 people watching, only the 43 likes. Remember to hit that thumbs up as you come into the channel. And let me know what you're enjoying. C-Max says, is Bryan Danielson also back for in-ring action? He never technically retired. He's just chilling out. Cal says, I wonder what the Wyatt's posts were about last week. They mentioned they'll open the door, but you must knock. Are they talking about new members or a new goal? Eric says, I'm surprised Naomi won the Raw adjacent title. Feels like she's running away, doesn't it? Feels like she's running away. Cal says, I see the Street Profits splitting, and says the All-In main event felt like Mania 2024, the Avengers Assembly. Declan says, I'm still predicting Becky 2 belts this SummerSlam. She's done with Lyra and Bayley. Juan says, do you see Alexa and Charlotte winning the tag team titles on SummerSlam? I certainly think that's likely, yes. Oh, a lot of people are very excited about the fact I'm drinking a can of Dr. Pepper. I need to keep mixing it up. Some people really enjoy this. Mr. X says, any plans Orton get his Burning the Lights theme back? No, he hates it. He hates that theme with a passion. Cal says, this year has been Triple H's first year. It's been mainly negative around his booking. However, those rewriting history need to stop. Vince's last few years were horrendous, and he's also a creep. Creep is a very, very polite term. Very polite. Eric says, Tom, do you think Liv changes her style with 2 major ACL injuries? I don't think her style was the reason for the previous injury. It was just a freak accident. It is not in any way anything she did. It is not a risk that she took. It was a freak accident. Trekipedia says, I was going to suggest they do a multi-man match for the Money in the Bank and thought they'd do it tonight, but when they announced the gauntlet for tonight, which sounds like a great match. You never know, they might still do another Money in the Bank to determine the winner. Why not? Like, seriously, why not? Hector says, Tom, were you surprised the YS6 won the tag titles this soon or no? I just hope they have good booking plan for them, because when they put the title on the Fiend early, it didn't go well. It really went terribly. I do have news on the Wyatt, so we will be getting to that shortly. Just need to finish my catching up. Cal says, to be fair, the reaction of Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly when Adam was speaking makes me feel that it's over. The suggestion seems to be that, for now at least, it's over unless something major changes. Christopher says, it sucks your two top superstars, Liv Morgan and Seth, is going to miss SummerSlam and most of the rest of the year. Says, I don't understand why WWE give Jade Cargill a push. Well, I mean, she's doing pretty well so far. She's got a great look, and overall people are invested in her. There's your answer. MD20 says, I originally wasn't going to go to Evolution, just Saturday Night Main Event. I'm so glad I did now. Ray says, TNA book WWE wrestlers better than WWE do. Yes. Because there's less competition, so they're going to win championships. If you're in a group of 50 women, you are closer to the championship automatically than if you're a group of 15. Cal says, can you see Gunter getting a shorter reign this time? He did 200 plus days last time. I think it'll be around the same, to be honest. Personally, I think it'll be around the same. Michael says, wonder if Seth will get the same injury-prone label as Tegan and Dakota. I doubt it. He's had that label for a long time, mate. Come on. A long time. Joey says, did Shawn Michaels help with booking Evolution? Yeah, a little bit. They had discussions about it, but he was mostly focused on NXT. Declan says, there's Tiffany versus Becky 2 at SummerSlam. Cal says, I hope the AJ return conversation will stop. Every month people create the rumour and then are disappointed. It's not WWE's fault. Some people get overexcited. Dan's here representing Eve. Says evening. By all means, check them out if you haven't already. There is plenty of wrestling content on their channel. How you doing, mate? Joey says, do you see Masha Slamovich winning the NXT women's title with TNA trying to get a TV deal? I don't see the correlation, personally. Rickan says, did you get any updates on AJ Styles? None at this point in time, no. Ladaria says, what do you think is next for Jimmy Uso? I think, unfortunately, at the moment, he's a side character supporting what's going on with Bloodline. Aaron saying the same. Ladaria says, who do you think Solo's going to face at SummerSlam? I can imagine it being a rematch with Jacob Fatu, though Roman is available. Cal says, I think it's inevitable Charlotte will turn on Alexa and lead Alexa to the Wyatts. We'll see. The intention is very much to support Charlotte being a face. I'll let you guys tell me how it's going. Sean says, I'd like to see Alexa and Charlotte win the tag belts at SummerSlam. Cal says, the Wyatts feel like heels now. Are they heels? Is this a new phase spoke about last year? They are not necessarily heels right now. They're sort of in between, but they are monsters. So monsters typically is lined up with heels. If the Incredible Hulk was a wrestler, he'd be a heel, obviously. Also says, get those likes up. 49, one more to 50. Just going to throw that out there. One more to 50. Marcel says, what's next for Jay? He's been pushed pretty hard for a while now. He's going to fade slightly, but it was sort of built around the Seth Rollins faction, which once again is now going to have to change. Noob says, what's next for Asuka and Kairi Sane? Will they be the Kabuki Warriors on the long-term plans, or will they be singles competitors? They are a tag team, as I mentioned when Asuka returned. Ray says, Steve Cutler was rubbish in WWE. Cool. Jackie P here is talking about Dr. Pepper with blackberry. We only really get standard Dr. Pepper and sugar-free over here. We don't get the range that you guys do. Sean says, would Naomi move to Raw and away from Jimmy, or will Tiffany move over to Raw? I think Jade Cargill's going chasing, personally. Marcel says, put Money in the Bank match as night one main event. Could be fun. They have other plans. Juan says, hey, Tom, since Hangman won the title, I think he's been okay. He's been able to recover from the CM Punk debacle. Jack Perry, not so much since the crowd didn't react to him. He's recovered enough. They're overall pretty happy with his output at times when he's been put into that limelight. C-Mac says, is Bryan Danielson also... Yeah, I've already answered that one. He never really left. Carl says, are you doing a watch-along for SummerSlam? Is it 2 nights? Yes. Oracular fan says, Triple H won't take the risk of booking another Money in the Bank match. He doesn't like LA Knight. I mean, he does. He gave him the name LA Knight back. Sean says, I still to this day don't understand how Roxanne fits in Judgment Day. What about bringing Prodigy Screams Judgment Day? You're telling me that Dominic Mysterio, Finn Balor, you're telling me they're not prodigies? Really? Stuart says, do you think Tessa Blanchard will appear in WWE at some point? No. Carl says, I can't lie, I enjoyed Goldberg Gunter. Hector says, Lash Legend being in the final 4 of the Women's Battle Royal Evolution tells me WWE sees what everyone should be seeing, and that is she has a big future and definitely a star in the making. Aaron says, do you feel they're trying to push Evolve like 205 Live? If so, I like it. They're not. 205 Live was heavily pushed on Raw, and they, for a while, always had at least one cruiserweight match. It's not the same thing. Ricky says, hey Tom, buddy, happy Monday. Glad to see you again. Been away for a while, been going through some issues. Sorry to hear that, mate. But it's slowing down. How bad is this injury to Seth, or have I missed it? Back at the beginning of the show, mate. Just rewind. Chris says they gave the Money in the Bank to Edge even when Kennedy won at Mania 23, was a while back. Paul says if Adam Cole retires, it'll be sad. Also a good thing his health comes first. Absolutely, it does. Rickham says, do you think Tama Tonga joins Jacob or Solo? I think he joins Solo. There are other options lined up for Jacob. Ricky, no Roman news beyond what I've already reported. I didn't expect him a Saturday night main event. I'm expecting him in the build-up to SummerSlam, which is about now. Possibly, Chris, but personally I'd just do another one. Why not? Cal says, I urge people to not hate the booking the next few weeks. A lot is going to have to get rewritten. Give them time. Yes, Raw was heavily built around the Seth Rollins faction. There's a lot of changes they're going to have to make. Ryan says, hey Tom, got in late, so we'll be delving back to the start. Hope you're having a good day. Thank you, Ryan, and I hope you are too. Chris says Money in the Bank is up to 1 year and next year's Mania, so he still could have it depending on how long the injury is. Yes, which is something I mentioned right back at the beginning. Cal says, I like Naomi winning the Raw belt. It was shocking. We all expected her to cash in on Jade or Tiff at SummerSlam. Yeah, and I'd imagine right now she's feeling very protected, but she is champion. It was a change made quite late on because of the injury to Liv Morgan. Sean says, I think Adam Cole announcement hurt the crowd at All In. I think more importantly, he's hurt. So, yeah, that's more important. Juan says, also, Tom, do you believe TK isn't as desperate to sign ex-WWE talent like before? Fightful reported AEW has been picky with that. Yeah, I wouldn't ever go as far as saying desperate, but certainly he's changed his overall tactics to make sure that they're getting the talent that they need rather than just names to fill a gap. Certainly his previous approach got a lot of attention and got a lot of ratings. This approach is made for better shows. Cal says Triple H loves LA Knight. It's just LA Knight's momentum isn't what it was 2 years ago. Just to be clear, guys, LA Knight is still being featured regularly in major matches, major feuds, and championship matches. So let's not pretend that he's hated just because he hasn't won the top championship. There's more to life. Trekipedia, did you watch Evolution? Ken says, hey, Tom's kind of crazy Alexa Bliss was able to get Charlotte cheered in a matter of a month. Yeah. WWE pretty happy with that. Wow. Oracular fan. LA Knight did not injure Seth. He did not injure Seth. That's not what happened. Cal says, the R-Truth hype is gone already. People went way over the top bringing him back. I don't necessarily disagree with that. Ray says, who would you sign for WWE from TNA? Rosemary. The answer is always going to be the same. The answer is always going to be Rosemary. Michael says, to be fair, when TK was signing former WWE talent, he still needed to fill out a roster, and they were more well-known with wrestling fans. Trekipedia says, I did, but I didn't see her on it, but then again, I got home right after the triple threat with Becky, Lyra, and Bayley was beginning. The other Mike says, what's next for Rhea, and are they still planning on reuniting the Bullet Club? You got me. There's a lot of changes. The injury to Liv has changed what their plans were for Dominic. There's a lot going on. The injuries have made Triple H rewrite a lot of things, and they don't seem to be ending. Hello, Alec. Good to see you, mate. Carl says, I felt bad for LA Knight. Biggest match in years for it to end in no time. But hey, he's got a win over Seth Rollins to scalp. Declan says, I'd like Becky to move to SmackDown and challenge Tiffany. Aaron says, any chance Rowan turns? I've reported at length about what the plans have been for the White Six. Also says they're teasing something coming. Should we expect it? Should we expect something that they think they've teased? Well, if they do something, then you're going to say, yes, they teased it. I don't really... There's no real answer to that question I can give. Before we get to the Y6, though, little something. Saudi Arabia have apparently offered a significant sum, quoted in approaching 9-figure area, which is 100 million plus, for a Roman Reigns versus The Rock match whenever this match should finally occur. WWE are eager to have the match, but the availability of The Rock continues to be their biggest issue. Lining it up with a trip to Saudi Arabia for a match with Roman is not necessarily something that they're going to be able to manage. However, the amount of money on offer here is huge, and something that WWE are very likely to just say, yes, please. Cal says also, you were right about Aleister Black when everyone said he's going to challenge Cody or Cena or a top guy. You said he'll be in the middle card, and you were right. And the second Triple H became head of creative, I said it was only a matter of time before Aleister Black returned. Wikipedia says Seth put LA Knight over big time by letting him hit the BFT instead of just a roll-up or ending the match right then. Seth called the audible. Seth changed the winner. Seth made it happen. Oracular says, can WWE just act like they never did this faction? What do you like, Oracular fan? Genuine question. What do you like about WWE? So far, haven't seen much of what you like, and I'm interested. Ray said it was so nice that AEW All In was on at 8 p.m. in the UK, finished nearly 2 a.m. instead of nearly 6 a.m. It was on for 6 hours. Wow. Sean says, Kelly said she was invited to Evolution 2 to sit in the crowd, but turned it down because she believed it wasn't the right way to come back. Bailey says Pat McAfee was hosting a show today at Atlanta, wasn't on WWE programming in Atlanta this weekend. Is he on hiatus, or have both sides begun to go separate ways? Taking a break, he is not going separate ways. There are limited dates. Cal says Seth is a genius, pulled a great veteran move. Yes, it's sad, but it shows Seth's IQ. He's one of the best. Dan says, evening Tom, I see PWInsider has said the news about Danhausen, interested WWE, like I said a month ago. You did indeed say that, Dan. I appreciate you bringing in the source that confirmed it. Wyatt 6. The Wyatt 6 are your new tag champions. A pleasant surprise for me is even though I did expect them to win the gold, I didn't expect it anywhere near this early. This is part of the WWE's plan to normalise them and get rid of the, if you'll forgive me, hocus pocus stuff, to a degree without normalising them too much. This is why they're building the threat of, for example, Eric Rowan. While they will have the individual tag team that they do, they want to make sure certain individuals feel like big deals, and Eric Rowan is expected to be a singles guy. The titles can technically be defended using the Freebird rule, and that will give them the opportunity to essentially book people like Uncle Howdy and potentially cost people from different ways. But the vast majority of tag team matches will be Joe Gacy and Dexter Lumis, as I originally reported more than a year ago. Guys, keep watching that pig. Keep watching that pig. Eric says, I feel like they already fumbled... Oh, sorry, one sec, guys. I feel like they already fumbled Black, putting him in a feud with R-Truth, and having him lose the first match feels very underwhelming. I agree. Wikipedia says Tony Khan made the right decision, but I'm shocked he didn't decide to combine the 3 titles in the Omega vs Okada match. Too many belts, water the specialness down to me. Gotcha, Oracular fan. I appreciate that. Says, I like this faction with Seth Bronson just for a Rock and Stone Cold wannabe to ruin it. Again, you were being positive. You had to sneak it in there, didn't you? But does say surprisingly enjoying Solo's Family Tree faction. Cal says, I think people forget Bray very rarely wrestled at the start. He only ever had a few matches. It was mainly Harper and Rowan. Yes, indeed it was. Ray says, do you think Trick Williams will lose a TNA title at Slammiversary? I think Mike Santana will win the title. I don't really know. Genuinely don't. Sean says, I was surprised Adam Page won. Declan says, do you see Becky moving to SmackDown? No. Carl says, have you noticed Howdy's gear changes every week? They did have a lot of gear made. He's just celebrating that fact. So for SummerSlam, the WWE are actively building towards Randy Orton and Jelly Roll versus Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul. Jelly Roll has been receiving wrestling training since about WrestleMania time, and overall they're very happy with his work, even though he's not necessarily the most convincing, as I'm sure you've noticed. Randy Orton will be doing the majority of the work, but there's a lot of people who really seem to quite like Jelly Roll, and Logan Paul can get anyone cheered. WWE were absolutely amazed by the reception from Monday Night Raw. Nope. Monday Night Raw? From SmackDown? Monday Night Raw. They were absolutely amazed with the reception on Monday Night Raw and were just genuinely excited to see what else they could do with this combination. If anything, they were disappointed at how flat things got once Drew McIntyre started claymoring people. They were also very impressed with Randy Orton. He got a lot of pats on the back for the intensity of the promo there. So I'm interested to see how this match goes. It'll essentially be a lot of Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul beating up Randy Orton. What a surprise. Quick thing about Saturday night's main event. Jesse Ventura, as we know, was there. He made an appearance, but he has been informed that his services on commentary will not be required going forwards. He's said to have taken it in stride and with the respect that his name has earned. Got to Trekipedia. Cal says, I remember in 2024 summertime, Tom reported there were multiple masks made and all were there to show Howdy's mouth. He's the speaker. One of the references that was used for the design of Howdy's mask was the mouth of Sauron. Check it out. You will see the comparison. Fiend says, WWE needs to be building younger talent. Lots of the main eventers are creeping on 40 if they're not there already. Hence the pushes for Solo, for Jacob, for Bron Breakker, for Bronson Reed, for Lyra Valkyria. They are doing what they can. Cal says, you also reported in 2024 masks made for Nikki was to hide her emotion. It's about keeping that grief in for all of them. Yeah, this is a great time to just sort of go back and remind yourself of what I did report because it goes into quite a lot of detail. I have no news on the Righteous, much as I didn't have any news on Motor City Machine Guns. Cal says the whole steel cage thing probably put an end to Jesse Ventura. Ray says, are you a fan of Jelly Roll and his songs? Don't really know him. Like what I've heard. Bailey says Jesse Ventura is 73, just isn't quick enough anymore to work commentary. No, I've not seen that, Cal, but I'll have to check it out. Sounds good. Sean says, my only gripe for Naomi winning is that she is a veteran going over a future star like Io and Rhea. Yes, but the intention is that Jade Cargill will be going over her. Andy, it has been asked. We covered it at the beginning of the YouTube video, so by all means, pop over there and rewind. Just a quick recap. I suspect there'll be a tournament, but I'd love it if Paul Heyman was handed the briefcase because that would just be funny. Juan says, Tom also reported AEW would start cutting talent too. It's the best option, really. They did get to a point where their numbers were just a little inflated, and the bean counters were not particularly happy with them. He says, Dan says, personally, I enjoyed Ventura. He made points that a normal person watching would make. I think there is a benefit to a little bit of distance. You've got experts at the table. You can use someone who's just a little bit surprised by it. I think that's how I would be in a lot of wrestling environments. It's like, that was amazing. What the hell was that? Cal says, I feel like they have the Wyatts back on track and I'm more hyped than ever before. Do you see them at SummerSlam? I think this might be their very first PLE, yes. Ray says, will Jacob Fatu be getting any more title matches? Yes, he has a long career ahead of him. Sean says, do you see Stephanie facing Tiffany at Clash in Paris? More on that shortly. And Declan says, what are the plans for Tiffany at SummerSlam? More on that shortly. Ricky says, will Naomi have a short run or a long run as a champion? I can't really answer that at this point in time. It's only just happened. Sid, probably. I'm not necessarily a DC guy. I'm not necessarily a superhero guy in general. But, yeah, I'll probably check it out. Kel says, it feels right to be fair. Bray's first PLE was SummerSlam versus Kane, wasn't it? don't think so. I thought it was Cena. I don't know. It wasn't really necessarily when I was watching. Hey, Bob John, how you doing, mate? Ooh. Stephanie Vaquer. Stephanie Vaquer is getting the biggest push of any of the call-ups from NXT. She's been treated like the biggest deal. She's been picking up the wins, and the WWE know how much talent they have there. There's also some concerns about the fact that, as she mentioned, English is not necessarily her first language, but she can definitely talk the language of wrestling. So that's what they're letting her do. She's getting the match in Paris for the championship, and she has some very good options to choose from. I would not expect her to face Tiffany Stratton, primarily because Tiffany Stratton is working solo and is a face. I think the most likely scenario is that Naomi is particularly well placed, given that there would be an overbooked mess that could protect Stephanie Vaquer if she did not pick up the win. That said, if she did face Tiffany Stratton, I'd expect a very big win. A very big win. The last thing as regards that particular grouping, Bianca Belair's heel turn is incoming. The work as a referee was the beginning of something very long term. And a big heel turn I can see coming. Thank you, Rabbit, for confirming that. Thank you, Cal, as well. Thank you very kindly. Oracle says, Jacob Fatu's in his mid-30s, joined the main roster on June 21st. I wouldn't say he has a long career ahead of him. I definitely would. Cal says, Jacob Fatu's 33, has 10 plus years left. Yeah, definitely. As Trekipedia points out, AJ Styles is still going, and is still going to a hell of a bit of quality. Bob John says, Clash in Paris, we are seated for Vaquer. What's your source for that, Oracular fan? You're going to need a source there. Cal says, you've been reporting since Jan about Bianca's heel turn. Ray says, do you see anyone turning heel or turning babyface anytime soon? There definitely will be those people. The other Mike says, any word on Jay White? Shouldn't be too long now. Danny says, Rollins' knee is completely butchered now, Tom. Think he's out until at least January? I think he'll be out for a long time, unfortunately. Sean says, do you see AJ defeating Dominic? I don't. I still think Finn Balor's the obvious choice, but they seem to have skirted away from that a little bit. You never can tell anymore. Since the Liv Morgan injury, there's been a pretty big shift in what we were expecting. What can I say? Plans changed. It's a good source, Oracular fan. Not gonna dispute that. I'll have to go and check that one because it's an interesting one. What I would say is that would make him about 52. Doesn't exactly help your argument. That would mean that Jacob Fatu has 19 years left. I would call that a long career. But always appreciate if you give the source. Whenever we're making statements like that, you need a source for it. Sean says, I hope Liv remains a heel when she returns. There are considerations. The popularity that she has. Trekipedia says, was Judgment Day supposed to split at Night of Champions? There were rumours of that, but not rumours I believed. Declan says, I could see Becky. Yep, I've seen you say that so many times, Declan. I get it. The other Mike says, why not just have another Money in the Bank ladder match to open SummerSlam? I've mentioned that. Bailey, you're absolutely right. Chat rate working over 100 on the chat. Yeah. It's been a few shows since it's happened. I'm enjoying it. Gotcha, Oracular fan. I still say 17 years is a very long time. I don't know how you can't. Cal says, did you see how he's wearing the Fiend 2.0 jacket? And Trekipedia says, thank you, Tom. That's why I asked, because you're trustworthy. Appreciate you, mate. Next up. Little fun one. Does anyone remember Worked Wrestling? They reported a lot of things. Some of them even happened. Worked Wrestling, infamously reliable, are claiming that John Cena's final match will be against Gunter. First and foremost, you guys know what we do here. Thank you, Michael. We remember. We remember these things. So that if they get it right, we give them credit. And if they get it wrong, we remember not to give them credit. Worked Wrestling, infamously reliable, are claiming John Cena's final match will be against Gunther. Now, Gunther is on Cena's list. I can confirm that Gunther is someone that John Cena wants to work with, but the final match has not been confirmed. I would suggest potentially that Worked Wrestling are trying to get people thinking that there'll be a title unification that is not currently planned. Triple H does not like the brand split. He doesn't. However, he sees the benefit of it, and he's more than happy to have 2 championships. So Gunther versus Cena, if it does happen, will be without the championship on the line. Would be very good for that good old-fashioned Saudi Arabian championship, after all. Sean says, Naomi won her first championship in 8 years. Hopefully Alexa can win her first women's championship in 7 years. I mean, the tag championships are right there. Right there. We've been live for 51 minutes. We are going to wrap it up there because, guys, I'm out of news. Oh, got to read that one, Cal. Also nice to see a certain journalist attacking Tom, involved in personal attacks on X. Tom backs away and doesn't get involved in childish arguments. Follow Tom. He's a great guy and a reporter. Appreciate you, Cal. Yeah, I don't even know what you're talking about because I don't really do social media. So, yeah, I've obviously seen people, like, doing this, that, and the other. I've been told I'm quote-unquote under attack. Yeah. It's not worth going on Twitter for. It's not worth projecting yourself to Twitter. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate the company. I appreciate the sourcing. I appreciate the conversation. And we'll be back live again on Friday. And I hope to see as many of you there as possible. In the meantime, I've been Tom Colohue. You've been fantastic. And I'll see you all very soon.